Hello everybody, I'm TH, and it's my favourite time of year. It is Halloween, baby! It is Halloween! Woo! And I don't care how many of you are telling me Halloween is cancelled this year. It ain't. It's never going to be cancelled. Helping me celebrate this spooky time of year with me is my good friend and buddy Recurring. Say hi, guy.
Hey guys.
And this year... Wait, what's wrong with your voice?
What? Why is your voices come down like this? I mean, what do you expect when your voice gets ripped up by a machine? To make you sound like a big daddy.
Big... what now?
Not pleasant, I'll tell you that.
Recurring. Of many things I can do for you, I can heal your voice at least.
You can?
Yeah. By the way, this is gonna hurt you more than it's gonna hurt me. So, heads up!
So it's my voice. Whoa. That actually worked. Thanks, DH.
Thank you.
Right, I believe we're doing some origin stories from some creepypastas as well as some other stories. Which you may or may not know, but without further ado, let's get on with it.
Yes, let's.
Scarecrow. He had lived on his family's farm in Loha his whole life, so morning chores were not uncommon to him. Lifting his basket over his head, he made his way to the large cornfield far behind the barn closest to his house. The harvest season was upon him and his family, so they had been very busy the past few weeks. As he walked out to the field, he couldn't help but notice a scarecrow that was perched high above the swaying corn sticks. That old thing had been in the same spot for as long as he could remember. The years of wear obviously taken a toll on the old scarecrow. Her long, coarse, black hair was a mess, her dress tattered and torn, and her pale body stained. He thought to himself about fixing her up some day. He stood silently staring at his old friend, remembering how he had shared so much with the inanimate object when he was younger and felt alone. Her eternal smile and blank eyes was comforting to him. A silent promise to never tell another soul all he had told her. It had been a couple of years since he had talked to the Scarecrow. He had figured an 18-year-old boy would be better off not talking to a lifeless object. Though to him, the Scarecrow wasn't lifeless. She was his first and best friend. They lived together, played together, aged together. Come to think of it, he had never noticed before that it seemed like the older he got, the older the Scarecrow appeared. He smiled and sat beside the Scarecrow's pole. "Sorry it's been so long," he whispered up to his friend. "I've been real busy, I suppose." The wind blew through the Scarecrow's hair and rustled the hay protruding from her body. "Yeah, I guess that's no excuse. Sorry, but I met this girl," he said, half smiling. "She's amazing. I think you know, she may be the one." Sudden silence filled the ears as the wind blowing through the cornfield abruptly stopped. The Scarecrow stood perched, completely still. "Would you like to meet her? She'd love you. I'm having her over for supper tonight. I'll bring her out afterwards and introduce you two," he told the Scarecrow as he stood up. He glanced up at his dear old friend once more before heading off to finish his daily chores. "Come on, Lily," he called to the girl, laughing as he ran with her towards the darkened cornfield. He was excited that his girlfriend had agreed to come to dinner to meet his parents, but was a bit nearer to show her his friend. What would she think? He was almost an adult, and he was still talking to an inanimate object. He smiled to himself. What was he talking about? Lily was so kind and sweet and understanding. Of course she would love to meet her. He turned back to see if his girlfriend was still following, and couldn't see her. "Lily!" he called as he looked around for her. He smiled. "Don't think you can hide from me in my own field," he called as he crept silently looking for her. Fishing through the cornstalks, he came upon the Scarecrow's perch, seeing the back of his friend first. "Hey there," he whispered. "I brought her to see you." He broke off suddenly when he walked up to the front of the Scarecrow and found that it wasn't his friend who occupied the perch at all, but Lily. Her arms and legs were bound coarsely with ropes to the old wooden post, and stomach cut open with her internal fluids dripping from the wound. His face paled as he dropped to his knees in shock. As his hands touched the ground, he felt a piece of paper right beside the wooden post. Hand shaking, he picked it up and read the poorly written message. "Now, you don't have to be so busy," he read out aloud, his voice shaking and eyes filling with tears. He tore up the piece of paper and stood once more to look at the corpse hanging on the perch in front of him, before turning around to meet the ever so smiling face of his dear old friend.
Mary-san. A family was getting ready to move houses when the daughter's beloved doll, Mary, was accidentally thrown away. The girl was extremely sad and wept to her parents. "It's okay, we'll buy you a new doll," they said, and the girl unwillingly accepted. As she got used to her life in a new place, the girl eventually forgot about Mary-san. Then one night, she got a call at home. Her parents hadn't returned yet, so she answered. "Hello? Hello, who is this?" "It's Mary-san. I'm in the rubbish." "Huh?" The phone hung up. Mary? That was the name of the doll she lost. She put it down to a prank call, but it still bothered her. Then the phone rang again. Although she thought it might be the same prank caller, it might have also been her parents, so she picked up the phone. "Hello, Mum? It's Mary-san. I'm at the station now." The phone hung up again. That station, it was near her house. For a prank call, something was sure strange, the girl began to think. Then the phone rang again. It's got to be Mary-san again, the girl thought. But she convinced herself it might be her mother and picked up the receiver. "Hello, Mum? Is that you? Come home quick." "This is Mary-san. I'm front of the store now." The phone hung up. The store was the only shop near the girl's house. It was then the girl realized that the perpetrator of the prank calls was gradually getting closer. An indescribable fear began to gnaw away at her heart. "I'm in danger," she thought. She picked up the phone to call her mother's cell, but at the same time the phone rang, causing her to answer it accidentally. "Yes? This is Mary-san. I'm in front of your house now, Oni-chan." The phone hung up. The girl trembled with fear. Not only did the person on the other end of the line know her name, but they were standing in front of her house. She pulled the phone line out of the wall and peered outside. There was nobody there. There was just a dim light cast over the road from the streetlights. Unable to stand it any longer, the girl checked the front door was locked, then ran upstairs to lock herself in her room. Then the phone rang. The same phone she pulled out of the wall. There was no way it could ring. No idea what was going on, and out of fear and anger laid bare, the girl picked up the phone. "Who is this? Stop it right now!" "This is Mary San. I'm right behind you now."
Grinny. I remember the first time I saw him. I was taking a night walk like I do. I was never scared to go out at night. My neighbourhood never had any crimes bigger than shoplifting or speeding. I was taking a walk through the local park and sat down on a bench underneath a lamppost. This dark black cat walked out in front of me. I thought I heard him purring, and he didn't seem like he was going to hurt me, so I reached out and started to pet him. He meowed and made cute little noises and purred. He began to purr louder and brush up against my leg, as so cats do. He opened his mouth, not to meow, but he showed me his teeth, like he was smiling just for a second, and then he closed it. Something made a rustle in the bush up ahead. He bolted off. It was getting pretty late, so I decided to start walking home. I got to my door, and right as I put the key in, I heard a meow from right behind me. I turned round, and there was the same cat, sitting up, looking right at me with big green eyes. It was scary green, almost neon. Now, I know you're not supposed to feed wild animals, but I couldn't help it. He looked so hungry. I went inside and hurriedly got a small paper plate and put some small slices of ham on it. I opened the door to give it to him, but he was gone. So I set the plate down right outside my front door. I made the psst sound that almost every cat comes to, but there was no trace of him. After that I went to bed, as it was around 11:30. That night I woke up to something tapping on my window. I would have been a bit scared had I not been too sleepy to comprehend anything. I turned over in my bed to see that the same cat sitting up with those big green eyes right on my windowsill. He was definitely smiling now. I could see the slightest hint of white near his mouth, as his teeth was just barely showing. His tail was flailing happily, like his tail had a mind of its own, and bouncing against my window in the process. I didn't notice that moment, but I did realize something later that day. I always kept my blinds down and closed, and my curtains over the window. But when I saw that cat, the curtains were parted and the blinds were up. I woke up that day not even remembering that sight. I got ready for my usual day. Fast forward a few hours, I won't bother you with the details. I left my work office not 30 minutes away from my house, and there, in the parking lot right beside my car, was the same cat, sitting and smiling with the green eyes that look even bigger, looking right at me. At this point I knew something was up. I called animal control, and they came and caught him. When they were taking him away, he was staring at me with eyes narrowed, like he was plotting to kill me for giving him away. I had a lot more peace of mind for the rest of the day, until that night. I didn't take a walk that night, as I was a bit unnerved about the cat. In fact, I didn't even leave the house for the rest of the day. Right before I fell asleep, I could have sworn I heard pouring on my bedroom door, but I dismissed it as my laundry machine, a mouse, or some other common sound. But that morning, I woke to something terrifying. The same cat was lying there on the end of my bed asleep, still with that smile that I've come to know as a very demonic smile on his face. I could even see a few teeth that were so long they were sticking out of his mouth. I had had enough. I knew I'd probably have animal rights people down my throat about what I was going to do, but I didn't care. I grabbed the cat by the neck. It didn't even scream or thrash around like a normal cat would. I threw it into the yard and beat it to death with a shovel. Throughout the whole 10 minutes process, he did meow or hiss even once. When I regained control of my thoughts and actions, the cat was barely recognizable. His front 2 legs were broken, his right ear was torn, his ribs were demolished. His face had a huge dent in it, and his fur was becoming infused with blood. I couldn't believe what I had done. I didn't have to come into work that day, so I put his mangled and blood-drenched corpse in a box, drove far out of the city, and buried it near a forest on the side of the road. Do you know why? Because I'm a jerk. I was really shaken. I thought about this. How had that cat gotten inside my bedroom, let alone my house? I didn't want to think about it. I got some lunch from a fast food restaurant and went home to take a nap. I was exhausted and it was only 12:30. I guess I slept all through the day, but I wish I'd slept longer. I woke up and was immediately compelled to look at my window and saw what had scared me for the rest of my life. It was that cat with his damaged body, smiling larger than ever before and staring right at me. His eyes were not bright green anymore and were oozing blood. They were pitch black, as if his pupils had enlarged to his entire eye. He looked at me and he started to dance. His broken limbs flaying about in unnatural and horrifying manners. His left leg was bent the wrong way, his ear was still torn. Every time he moved, a sickening crack could be heard. I screamed and ran for my life, got in my car and drove as far away from that city as possible. I'm now trying to start a new life in a new state, and I'll be damned if I ever interact with any wild animal ever again. One day I came home from my new job and went into my bedroom. I saw something on the bed. It was that cat. He looked somewhat strange. I was scared by the mystery of how he'd gotten here. It couldn't have been the last one. It looked nothing like it. Then suddenly its eyes changed crimson red colour and smiled a truly evil smile. I screamed at the top of my lungs as it began to walk towards me, hissing at me. I threw everything that came to have at it, but it slashed through the objects like a hot knife through butter. It pinned me to the ground and slashed and slashed and slashed with its claws, all the while smiling like a mental hospital escapee. But as if God were watching over me, the police burst through the door, saw what was happening and shot the demon off me. The police didn't ask any questions about what had happened. And if they could, what could I say? That day is forever carved into my mind, slowly ripping me apart and never leaving my mind. But then I realized, if it was able to come back once, what's stopping it from coming back again?
The Weeping Woman, or La Llorona. This is a story that the old ones have been telling children for hundreds of years. It is a sad tale, but lives strong in the memories of the people. There are many who swear that it is true. Long years ago, in a humble little village, there lived a fine-looking girl named Maria. Some say she was the most beautiful girl in the world. And because she was so beautiful, Maria thought she was better than everyone else. As Maria grew older, her beauty increased, and her pride in her beauty grew too. When she was a young woman, she would not even look at the young men from her village. They weren't good enough for her. "When I marry," Maria would say, "I will marry the most handsome man in the world." Then one day, into Maria's village rode a man who seemed just to be like the one she'd been talking about. He was a dashing rich rancho, the son of a wealthy rancher from the southern plains. If he could ride like a comanche, in fact, he owned a horse, it grew tame, he would give it away to a rope, a wild horse from the plains. He thought he wasn't manly to ride a horse if it wasn't half wild. He was handsome. He could play with the guitar and sing beautifully. Maria made up her mind that the man was for her. She knew just the tricks to win his attention. If the ranchos speak when they met on the pathway, she would turn her head away. When he came to her house in the evening to play his guitar to serenade her, she wouldn't come to the window. She refused all his costly gifts. The young man fell for her trick. That haughty girl Maria, he said to himself. I know I can win her heart. I'll swear I'll marry that girl. So everything turned out as Maria had planned. Before long, she and the rancho became engaged, and soon they were married. At first, things were fine. They had 2 children, and they seemed to be a happy family together. But after a few years, the rancho went back to the wild life of the Parries. He would leave town and be gone for months at a time, and when he returned home, it was only to visit his children. He seemed to care nothing for the beautiful Maria. He even talked of setting Maria aside and marrying a woman of his own wealthy class. As proud as Maria was, of course she became very angry with the rancho. She also began to feel anger towards her children, just because he paid attention to them, but just ignored her. One evening, as Maria was strolling with her 2 children on the shady pathway near a river, the rancho came by in a carriage. An elegant lady sat in the seat beside him. He stopped and spoke to his children, but didn't look at Maria. He whipped the horses up on the street. When she saw that, a terrible rage filled Maria, and it all turned against her children. Although it was sad to tell, the story says her anger, Maria seized her 2 children and threw them into the river. But as they disappeared down the stream, she realized what she had done. She ran to the banks of the river, reaching out her arms to them, but they were long gone. The next morning, a traveller brought word to the village that a beautiful woman lay dead in the bank of the river. That is where they found Maria. They laid her to rest where she had fallen. But the first night Maria was in the grave, the village heard sounds of crying down by the river. It was not the wind, it was La Llorona crying. Where are my children? And when they saw the woman walking up and down the bank of the river, dressed in a long white robe, the way they had dressed Maria for burial, on many a dark night they saw her walk through the bank and cry for her children. And so they no longer spoke of her as Maria. They called her La Llorona, the weeping woman. And by that name she is known to this day. Children are not warned to go out in the dark, for La Llorona might snatch them and never return them. There we are, another Halloween's terror night all over and done with. But we will leave you with this. We hope you stay safe in this scary time of year. But for now, I've been TH, I have been with Recurring.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
And we hope you have a spooky Halloween.
Enjoy the fright night.